Hello, I'm Dave Peach, and this is the Crawfordsville Peachcast, sponsored by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. See them in person or at tricountybank.net. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Crawfordsville Peachcast, we are presented by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. Also sponsored by Central Indiana Rubber, power for you. And we say, Dave Meyer, on Untoasted or any edition of the Crawfordsville Peachcast, 1, 2, 3. Hello.
Hello.
Todd.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, I was thinking about some things.
Mm-hmm.
You think about some shows, you think about maybe some cartoons that you watched when you were younger or a TV show. And sometimes I'm going to ask you this, is it better just to remember the show than to actually watch it?
Sometimes it does. Cause I have like a very embellished recall that is normally leans on the positive side. So some things I remember being riveted by, when I've gone back to them, Dave, they haven't had the same impact. So sometimes it's better to leave my memories alone.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, let's say, a show like Scooby-Doo.
Oh, yeah.
I like Scooby-Doo. It's a good show.
I can't remember not knowing Scooby and Shaggy.
Dave, you want to sit down and watch it for about 4 hours? Because I got the DVD.
Wow, Dave. No, but
come on, Don Knotts is the guest star.
Right. And, you're going to get the Globetrotters if you're around. And, I get it. I mean, there was a time, Dave, when I'd sit down for 2-3 episodes of Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp.
I would be more apt to watch that movie or that show we talked about, the Thunderbirds, because I haven't seen it.
Yes.
And so the whole premise of this Untoasted deal that we've been doing for
yes, sir,
pretty much almost
since the world changed,
almost 2% of a century, 20% of a decade almost. We've been doing this thing. Is that unlike The Godfather, unlike This Is Spinal Tap, unlike Rocky, these are movies that are untoasted, meaning that let's take a show like the Andy Griffith Show. I mean, I am so toasted on that show. I mean, I've seen it. Now I don't go like the Andy Griffith fan clubs in the day that had all the knowledge that, you'd have to slow the scene down to figure it out. But anyway, that's what I like about these movies is that, we're doing Swing Shift today. I mean, this is a movie that is totally untoasted. We don't know that much about Swing Shift. So we're finding out what the movie was about and who was in it and what benefit it may have on society in 2024.
Absolutely. And that's why this is fun to take an unbiased, unvarnished look back at some of these. Obviously, this one's a period piece, so set in World War II, but made in our heyday of the 80s. So it's and interesting. The thing I didn't know about it, because I look at it and you look at the cast, and you talked about Goldie Hawn, Kurt Russell, Christine Lottie, Ed Harris. We got Fred Ward, a young Holly Hunter is in there. Charles Napier, who I always think of when I think of the Blues Brothers, as he was the leader of the Good Old Boys, right? He was in a lot of the character actor that was kind of a bad guy. Also, he was the bad guy in Rambo, I think. So, some very recognizable people. Jonathan Demme made a lot of great movies, Silence of the Lambs. But the backstory on this one was there was some production power issues between the director, Jonathan Demme, and the executive producer / star, Goldie Hawn, which I watched this movie and reading all about this and think I should like this movie more because there's parts of it I do like. But I guess, Dave, somewhere out there in the insulated level of Hollywood people, Jonathan Demme's actual edited version of this movie exists. Not a public thing, but the people that have seen that say that it's like, that's a classic. But this movie, which we're going to talk about, which did not make box office buku bucks by any means, but was critically reviewed by, some folks, and Christine Lottie got an Academy Award nomination. So, there's some paradoxes in this movie.
We'll talk about it. Now, I will say, going back to Rambo, and you're talking about the guy was in Rambo. You remember, I think it was Brian Dennehy. Was he the guy that was in the movie Rambo?
Brian Dennehy was he was the main guy.
Okay, now he would always yell, "Will." Remember that? Will.
Right.
Will.
Yeah.
He would yell, "Will," okay? In Rambo. And if it was raining and Will was tied around a tree and Dennehy was bleeding, I don't know, Will. So at Butler, the scorekeeper's named Will, okay? And he sits like 3 seats. It's like there's 2 people in between me and Will, I think. There's 2 people between me and Will. And we're all down there, and the sound isn't very, it's tough to communicate sometimes to somebody sitting next to you, let alone somebody sitting 3 seats down. So occasionally at Butler, when I'm doing a game, I'll go, Will. And I immediately think, the only thing I think about, aside from the game, a little bit of the game, is Brian Dennehy yelling at David Caruso, Will. Will, I'm glad you're not tied to a tree. How many timeouts do they have left? Something like that. So
it's good. Dude.
But I'm glad he's doing okay, and it's not raining inside the field house. So coming up, it is Swing Shift, Goldie Hawn, and we'll talk about it next on the Crawfordsville Pete's Cast. Will!
You dropped your cell phone, the car won't start, and now your email has been hacked. Yup. Ever had one of those days? Tri-County Bank can help with a protection plan powered by Bazing. This is Bria French. Contact any of our offices to see how Bazing can resolve those big issues. Terms and conditions may apply. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Crawfordsville Peachcast, Dave Peach, Dave Meyer, number 33 on the Untoasted list. If you are keeping track, appropriate for the Indianapolis 500, just concluded a few weeks ago as we tape this. 1984's Swing Shift with Goldie Hawn. She is now 78. Ed Harris was in this movie. He is now 73. Kurt Russell is 73. Christine Lottie is 74. And Holly Hunter is 66. They were all in this movie, and they are all still around. And Ed Harris was in Maverick, right? Top Gun Maverick.
Yes. Yeah, he played like an admiral that gets dusted by Maverick in a pretty cool scene where he has on those gold mirror shades, and gets just covered, and he doesn't move. So that had to be fun. I
was going to go over their IMDb numbers, and I think this counts television shows. I'm not exactly sure what the IMDb number means, but Goldie Hawn has 39. You would think that'd be more. I'd have to check into that. Ed Harris has 110. Kurt Russell has 109. Christine Lottie has 80. And so they're right there. But Goldie Hawn in Swing Shift 1984, it was, I expected a little bit more out of this movie. I expected it to be a little more, how can I say this? Just a little more riveting. It was very, for me, it was like kind of in the predictable category. And then I'm like, okay, you're just kind of making it up as you go along.
It did. It felt like it definitely should have been better. The story just didn't really move along in a way that kept drawing you farther in. You wanted to like or understand these characters, but because it kind of felt like the story should be better because a lot of dramatic elements are there. people going away to war. It begins, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Women are pushed into the workforce. There's drama inherent in that, and just so I don't know. I expected it to be a tighter narrative or a better narrative, but let's talk about what it is. So, it's funny because I think about this movie and I looked at the poster is like it's Goldie Hawn sitting on top of the words swing shift. So that's, to me, it's like if I look at the poster and I see like that's what the movie's about, and then later it's like that's a sign to me. So this is like, it looks like they were trying to draw people in. Goldie Hawn fans is like where they went with this. And I had to look up what's a swing shift, because they actually defined it in the movie. 4 to midnight. I thought there would be more of an analogy or some kind of connection to that. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I can kind of see why it was a good part for Christine Lottie. I guess in Jonathan Demme's cut, Goldie Hawn is more of a part of the ensemble and not the central character. To me, it was my first thought too, because I always think about, when you think about Kurt Russell, you think about Goldie Hawn. They've been connected for a long time.
They've been partners since 1983. I thought they were married,
right.
But they're not married.
They're not married, but I looked it up. They met when they were teenagers, but then they didn't know each other, and they reintroduced themselves on the set of this movie. And so this movie, if did nothing else, it was the catalyst for them getting together. They eventually had a son who was a professional hockey player, a goalie, and now is an actor named Wyatt. So, but I guess the first thing was I expected Goldie Hawn to be married to the Kurt Russell character, whereas she's married to the Ed Harris character, who goes off to war at the beginning of the movie. And when she starts working at this factory, aiding the war effort by, she's a riveting person. So they're put together like airplanes or whatever they are. So at this place is where we connect with the Christine Lottie character, who is her neighbor, who they've seen each other, but they don't like each other. And we also meet the Kurt Russell character, who is a trumpet player called Lucky, who would rather not be working in a factory.
Rather be a performer. And of course, Ed Harris, as you mentioned, is off to war. Goldie and Kurt meet. Goldie tries to ignore Lucky, and it doesn't work.
Yes.
So really, and this is they call this a romantic drama. Some people might call it. Can you still say chick flick on the radio?
I think you can. It's there in a positive way. It's some chick flick because it does celebrate a relationship between these women who are brought together based on circumstances, and then it gets a little, obviously later on it gets a little more muddied, and that's where, again, I'm at the end of this movie, I don't know what it was about.
No. Well, it started, as you mentioned, Pearl Harbor, and there's Ed Harris and Goldie Hawn.
Yes.
And they are married, and then Ed Harris goes off to war. Lucky moves in. Harris makes his return number 1. Then he leaves. Lucky ends up leaving. Harris returns again. And along the way, Kay, Goldie, and Christine, they go to work. Kay and, I mean, I guess the first question I have about this movie, do Kay and Lucky fall in love? Is that what would be called love, or what was that? What was their relationship exactly?
I do not think so. I think that he was a guy trying to enjoy life, and he was drawn to her and enjoying time with her. I don't know if it didn't feel like a passionate, involved, engaged relationship. Felt like a situationally charged, which I can understand, but there wasn't enough there of belief.
They were kind of going through the motions of having an affair, an illicit affair,
Right.
which was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then Ed Harris comes, and he can tell really quickly that Lucky and Goldie are a thing. He leaves, and then along the way, Christine Lottie and Lucky carry on. And I didn't get this one scene, but Goldie Hawn took a taxi cab to Lucky's place and saw what was going on and left. I guess I didn't follow that. Maybe I was checking out at that point, but I didn't follow that scene.
And this is also a part of, if you read about the backstory, where things were shot to try to connect things together which wasn't originally planned that way. Apparently, the Jonathan Demme cut focused on the friendship between the two women. That was the central kind of through line of that part of the movie. So I think that's where that's where some of this stuff, how it came to be. I know, as it says here, Demme basically walked away from the movie. He left his name on there, but he does not call it, and the editor walked away as well. And basically the studio finished, I think, based on what Goldie wanted. So there were additional shoots, additional editing, lots of stuff. Looking back at, Siskel and Ebert at this time, basically Ebert gives it a positive, and he says there's no suspense, no big emotional payoff, but the movie is absorbing. And he goes on to say, maybe the first ever buddy movie starring two women. So if there is, as you know, from what you were kind of saying in that, if there is any kind of allure that we're going to say to anybody why you should go see this movie, you and I are not going to watch it again because we didn't think it was that great. But if you want to look for an early attempt at a woman buddy movie that has some good performances, Swing Shift might be something for you.
Yeah, I expected a little bit more bite from Goldie on the confrontation. I didn't know. Okay, it really had me spinning because I thought, okay, she's good with the fact that Christine Lottie and Lucky were together, and then all of a sudden she's not good, but she doesn't really dig in. It's more of a subtle kind of drunken burst.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking, man, I was kind of expecting them to be a little bit more engaged in the confrontation there, but it ended up. And again, I'm like, well, is she mad at her? Is she not? Or is that was that the whiskey talking, or what? And then they ended up getting back together. So I think there should have been more sting to the fact that Christine Lottie, or the character, kind of, but again, she ends up going back with. I mean, you've watched the movie. She ends up going back with Ed Harris. So I'm totally confused on this.
Yeah, no, and this is where I think, like where you were, what you're just describing, I believe, same thing, which was this, we expected this scene now to be some payoff scene where we learn something, or something is truly, dealt with, or, put out there, and in which case it was just kind of a drunken grievance exchange kind of thing. And then we ended up where we ended up. So, I wanted to like this movie, Dave. I did.
Yeah, I thought it was totally different. I thought it was more of a comedy type movie, and I think because of the poster,
yes,
it was Swing Shift. I didn't know exactly, and then they even they start out with a dance hall type situation where you think, oh, Goldie Hawn's going to work a swing shift at the dance hall or something, and that's things are going to happen there, but that didn't happen, and it ended up being kind of a I mean, there were some points in it about working women and about how, kind of the, now I mean, I'll just quote the movie. I'm quoting the movie here.
Yeah.
At the end of the war, they said the women needed to go back to their homes and do the stuff that would be
Right.
again, that's what they said in the movie. I'm not saying I'm not saying
one of the lines
yeah.
was riveting is suited for gals as you're used to repetitive tasks.
Yes, and things like that. And then it definitely and that was probably well intentioned, or I should say that was intentional in that they wanted to show exactly how the mindset was in 1945,
absolutely.
at least according to this movie it was. But I understand it. It was, I think if you watch this movie, maybe you want to go see, what exactly did Christine Lottie do to get an Academy Award nomination in the movie? And she did very well in the movie. So you want to see that. And, you look at a young Ed Harris, see Kurt Russell. This is 20 years before the movie Miracle. And you want to see kind of like Goldie Hawn in 84, still making big movies, but, obviously she's trying to extend her career at that point. So you can watch that. But Swing Shift, definitely just kind of I hate to say it, but, and we're going to talk about this after the break, you kind of put it in the mediocre category.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's there.
And that's not where you want to be.
No, because you realize nowadays, I mean, there's a Steve Martin documentary on Apple right now, and he talks about when he knew he's going to start his film career, he knew it would take 8 movies for him to be in 5 good ones.
Yeah.
So
this is a Swing Shift. There's not a lot we can sink in here, but Goldie Hawn, Ed Harris, Kurt Russell, Christine Lottie in the movie. Holly Hunter had a kind of a bit part in the movie. So she was kind of launching her career. So overall, Swing Shift, it is available free on YouTube, 1984 movie. Watch it and let us know what you think. In the Crawfordsville Peachcast. You can email me at dapeachat@forchtbroadcasting.com. We also have a Crawfordsville Peachcast Facebook page, which needs a little work. I know I gotta get on it. It's one of those things, but you can also let us know on that. We are back with segment 3 of the Crawfordsville Peachcast after this. Central Indiana Rubber Products provides the power for you. Central Indiana Rubber Products, or CIR, keeps farm equipment and local manufacturing processes running with gaskets, belts, seals, and O-rings, among a variety of other products and services. Employee-owned and always customer-focused. Central Indiana Rubber Products, 989 West, 83 North, Crawfordsville, and at indianarubber.com. Central Indiana Rubber Products, or CIR, power for you. Segment 3 of the Crawfordsville Peachcast. Dave Peach and Dave Meyer. And Dave, we were talking about things in segment 1, maybe some shows, some movies better thought of than actually seen.
Yes.
There is something to that. There's some movies you could watch over and over and over again, like a National Lampoon Christmas Vacation. I mean, you go watch that movie over and over and over again. And then some things are just better left thought of than actually watched. And I'm gonna give you an example.
Okay.
The show Love Boat.
Ooh, exciting and new. No more, Dave?
Well, okay. Love Boat, and I talked about this with my son in a car ride. What was it about Love Boat? That would
be Matthew Peach.
Yeah, that'd be Matthew.
Right.
Yeah, my son Matthew. Yeah, he's what thank you, Dave. What kept people coming back to the Love Boat? Because there were certainly, it wasn't an important TV show. I'm not, well, this is making important, this is an important show. It's making a statement. It's solving issues. This was a show. Okay. But it wasn't that funny.
No,
it wasn't that funny. It was a drama. It was kind of a drama. It was kind of a comedy. What kept people tuning in week after week of this show for this show?
Well, I gotta say, here's the thing that the I think there's just well, let me back up here. Saturday night, remember when it was Love Boat Fantasy Island? Like that's good programming. Again, both of those were not, they were out there kind of things. With Love Boat, I actually think it was the crew. You kind of, Doc and Isaac and you knew Murray for a long time before he became Captain Steubing. So I think people tuned in weekly the way you tune into a soap opera. You like the characters. And then it was this combination of young and new Hollywood. Like you got young Tom Hanks and like Red Buttons and Stephen Eady, one week. It was so it was kind of I think why it worked is the demographic was really broad, because the stories were not. The writing was bad, but we tuned in for a long time.
You could, and we talked about this, you could possibly see yourself in the characters, in the person looking for love, or the person, with the marriage that, they're kind of grown, they're kind of getting grumpy with each other. And so maybe you can see yourself in some of those situations in the movie or in the show. And maybe that's what kept people coming back.
And it was, they would kind of tie things around, like every now and then there'd be an episode that would be more centered on one of the crew, or the crew would kind of get involved with, the passengers in some sort of way. But I mean, very formulaic, but we were into formula at that time.
And again, we're talking about mediocrity. And I don't, for some reason I would not give it the mediocrity. I would not call it mediocre. It was a show that was
well produced.
Yeah, it was well produced. And it's just curious to look back and see what kept people, going back week after week. Kind of wondering what kept us coming back week after week. But I think you're right there. It was the cast. It was seeing the cast with the different people that were in the show. It was comfortable on a Saturday night at 9:00 to watch the show and to know that Fantasy Island was coming on next. Yeah. You were just loaded for 2 hours of cheesy entertainment. Maybe you didn't know it was cheesy at the time, but it was there for you as just kind of like I guess you would call it kind of a comfort food meal for 2 hours.
Absolutely. And, part of that comfort food was, again, the formula, like that song and these people their pictures popping up in portholes. So it'd be like, oh, well, Tony Curtis is on there this week, So, it's like all that. And then the song, The Love Boat, you're dialed in, right? Okay, now we've got the guest stars, we'll sit in. So it was just, it was comfort food. It was cheesy, but it was cheese that we liked and cheese that we weren't either offended by or repulsed by in any way. It was easy to digest in its kind of, not, if you really examine it, the form wasn't that great, but we liked how it functioned.
Okay, rate its rewatchability in your estimation.
If I'm in a hospital room in a rural place, Dave, and that's all that's on, I will not complain. But am I seeking via YouTube or some of the free? No, there's not. And you got to believe, Dave, with all that's out there, you can't tell me that, there's not a Love Boat channel somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Oh, without question. So again, kind of going back to our segment, one thought, there are things that you think about that you go, oh, I love those. And then it's like, like maybe you think about Necco wafers. You think, oh man, I got those Necco wafers when I was a kid. And then you like buy, 3 packs of Necco wafers and you figure, man, they're much better thought of than actually digested.
Yeah.
But again, if you're a Necco Wafer fan, I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. And I think that's with Love Boat. You go, hey, I got a 4 DVD set of the Love Boat, and if you're the relative that got it for me, I'm sorry, but I still have it. But I mean, how many episodes are you going to power through of the Love Boat, of the 29 that you could? I think the first and second season, maybe there's 50 of them. I don't know. But after a couple of them, I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could, if there was somebody else that was into it, you could probably, argue about, who the guest stars were different years or something. But there's really no Love Boat game. It was a part of our comfort viewing at a time when broadcast television was, pretty near its apex.
And there must be something to, and I'm talking about people our age, there must be something to Everybody Loves Raymond and King of Queens.
Yes.
That
same.
For some reason we can watch those shows over and over and over again. I mean, they have been on TV Land. I know this because that's what we watch when we're going to sleep. It has been Raymond and King of Queens for the bedtime hour for I'm thinking 5 years.
Yeah.
The same shows. Again, I mean, here we go. It's Bacco for King of Queens, or when they donate to the library. I love that one. The library one, maybe my favorite one. Bacco's is also good too. But of course, Raymond, they've got all the all the Chris Elliott ones when Brad Gilbert or whatever his name is, when Robert when he gets married, and then all the it's just it's amazing how you can just sit and watch those over and over again. But some shows you can't.
No,
or you don't want. I'm sorry. Some shows you don't want to. They're not showing Love Boat every. Of course, Raymond is more contemporary, but you could say that with other contemporary shows. The rewatchability of these of those two shows is amazing.
Yeah, and it's centered in the writing. The writing keeps it evergreen. The characters, over time, you fall in love or know them in such a way, but it's the writing. I mean, the stuff that's going to stick around and has stuck around, because in our world, if you think about when our growing up, what are the things that are still around from that period? Yeah, Andy Griffith. Yes. What else? There's not a whole lot. I mean, there are a few things if you look. Happy Days is out there. MASH is out there in some fashions. But again, writing. Even if stuff is stuck in a certain era, if it's done well, I mean, Dick Van Dyke, I can still pick up a Dick Van Dyke episode from 65 that it was long off television before I discovered it. And yet because the writing, it's contemporary and funny, even if some of the premises are like, oh my God, that's how they did it back then. The humanity is what keeps us coming back.
Yeah, and we could even get into music as well. What is it about the 400 to 500 classic rock songs that keeps people coming back time and time again? I mean, Benny and the Jets, Dream On, Hotel California. I mean, Fleetwood Mac, Journey, Don't Stop Believin'. I mean, those songs are still there for us, and for some reason, they stand the test of time. We could hear them over and over again, and other songs, not as much. But that again, we're going into our mind here, and kind of what all of our memories and all that. And I'll just go back to a previous podcast and say, for some reason, I can still see Joe Torre staring at me with that big 363 batting average from 1971, MVP of the St. Louis Cardinals. And I can still see him right now. And by golly, there's a lot of things that I can't remember.
Joe's season is burned on your brain, Dave.
It is. And we'll be back. We've got to, we're not really sure where we're going as far as movies go. I've got some ideas. We'll talk about that. But again, we want to thank Dave Meyer again for joining us on an Untoasted segment, Swing Shift number 33 from 1984. We'll do it again in a few weeks, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. My pleasure, sir.
We are presented by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892, and by Central Indiana Rubber. Power for you. 1, 2, 3. Hello.
Hello,
Todd.
Todd.
Thanks for listening to the Crawfordsville Peach Cast, sponsored by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. I'm Dave Peach. Join us every Thursday for a new episode on Apple or Spotify. Please like, subscribe, and download the Crawfordsville Peach Cast. This podcast was produced and edited by Up There Media and is a presentation of Fork Broadcasting Digital.